Welcome back to Diary of a Speed Reader. Today's book is Changing World Order, and I'm giving it 4 stars. Now, Ray Dalio is a true icon in financial services, and I think my boss even gave me his newsletter to start reading maybe 15 years ago, something like that. He is definitely instrumental for so much of the knowledge that I have, and his thought process and framework for how he thinks about things is really next level. So you definitely should read any book that's put out from him. I loved his book Principles, but it really pains me to take off a star, but I couldn't do anything else. Now, in classic Diary of a Speed Reader mode, we're gonna go through 3 things I like and 1 thing, Ray, why did you do this? But before we get into that, if you would like, subscribe or comment below, that would be amazing. Additionally, I have a special request. As a lot of you guys know, after the 100 Books in 100 Days challenge 2 years ago, I decided to re-enter the world of finance, and I am starting a YouTube channel now called Markets with May, and it is a recording of the daily show that I do. It's a little bit delayed, but it definitely provides all of the financial research that I'm doing every day on companies, global macro, and more. And it would be amazing if you also like financial books. I'll be reviewing them there instead of here. Details for that are in my bio. There may also be a link in my banner above as well. Now, let's get into this book. The number 1 reason you should read this book is there will never be anyone that describes reserve currency better than Ray Dalio. And this is something that, oddly enough, I'd been trying to describe to a lot of my friends as they were making very strange assessments of the impact of the US economy on other countries, or alternatively, just not understanding the dynamic of importing and exporting in and out our monetary and fiscal policy, and also how much control you might have if you're not a reserve currency nation. This is so vital right now in understanding pretty much everything from what's going to happen as we start to raise rates and do a series of things on the fiscal side to Bitcoin. Even though Ray Dalio does not go all the way to Bitcoin, but I didn't duck a star for that. Now, the second reason that you should read this book is Ray Dalio actually does a decent job on this section on China. Now, let me explain this to you. You would think, of course he does. He's this crazy, gifted asset manager who has been doing global macro forever. Well, it turns out I've been in the business for a while, and I am based here in New York City, and I do have access to some of those people, and I've had to bite my tongue more times than makes any sense in this lifetime on folks that did not understand enough Chinese history and make all these claims and statements. And in fact, it's done almost every day on CNBC. So since China is increasingly becoming important, I would highly recommend you read this book, if not only for that part of the book, which is the back portion. Now, the third reason you should absolutely read this book is Ray Dalio does one of the best jobs I've ever seen of describing the rise of the American economic system and its dominance globally post-World War II. If you don't understand this facet, then I think a lot of current world events are going to make limited sense. So he does such a concise job in this book. It's worth just spending a little time reviewing it and understanding the global dynamic of what happened subsequent to World War II as a starting place on your journey to understanding global economics. I took a star off this book is because of Ray Dalio's treatment of debt. I mean, it's his main thrust of his book. It's the first few chapters of the book. And I'm going to say this right now. I know Ray Dalio knows more than I will ever know about debt. And I also know that he knows everything I'm about to say. And I hold as a definite situation that this book was 800 pages, covered that, and they removed it. And I also want to say, if I'm ever interviewing, talking to anyone from Bridgewater, nothing but respect, okay? You can't talk about debt, even if it's in the context of a nation, without also demonstrating that assets and something other than just debt to GDP ratios is the thing. And the reason you can't do that is because the US is so asset rich. Now, acknowledging that you're using GDP as kind of an income metric, right? If we're going to talk about 3 different financial statements. But because you're talking about China as a potential example, and because China has had financial dominance, even though it's not one of your top ones that you studied, because you'd have to go so far back and really have certain types of records to incorporate that, it's actually kind of important, and you know it, because I know I probably learned it from you anyway in one of your newsletters. You have to talk about the asset side, and you have to talk about use of capital when it comes to debt, and then you have to if the use of capital is something that generates enough income to justify it, then the debt is fine. You know, that's my issue with the book by a lot. I know I'm opening myself up here because some people will say, well, no, he does go through these different factors, education, et cetera, that are great uses of proceeds. And I'm going to say, not really. And the reason I'm going to say not really is because, you know, given how strong the argument you're making is on debt, you need to do a little bit more on either just direct asset sales to just really talk about how you'd lower the debt outright, or alternatively really go through the economics of each one and how they adjust and lower long-term operating costs. I mean, just talking about education and how that just creates a better labor pool, maybe, but it's so long in tooth, and that is definitely not what we experienced with China becoming a new potential reserve currency, or if you go all the way back in history, which you actually do, crazily enough, but there's not the right data to help you really solidify the idea of Chinese as a reserve, China's reserve currency in like the 1700s. Now, it's not a nuanced point or even an insignificant point given how passionate this book is about debt, and because we kind of just know Ray Dalio feels very strongly about how much debt the US has accrued. The reason that it's so salient is because the solutions that you would come up with in the way of fiscal monetary policy would differ fairly distinctly with a full treatment of assets and you know, operating leverage from different types of fiscal policy, et cetera, et cetera. You lose that in the way that you have done what you've done, and I kind of hate that because I kind of think you're awesome. Reading stats, Amazon is showing this book at 600 pages. My Kindle showed it closer to 480. It took me 2 hours and 45 minutes to read this. If you'd like more information on speed reading, there is some information in the bio below. But again, like, subscribe, comment. I always enjoy that. It helps me know what to do. And also, if you like financial books, click down as well in my bio and join my Markets with May YouTube. Till next time, bye guys.